What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Heart of a Lion podcast. I am your host, Jay, and you have just stepped into the Lion's Den. If you're a returning listener, then thank you for coming back for some more. Thank you for tuning in again. If this is your first time tuning in, then go ahead and hit that follow or the subscribe button from wherever you're listening to the podcast, as well as go ahead and follow the page on Instagram at HoAL podcast. Again, that's at HoAL podcast. The interesting thing to me about this episode is the last episode I recorded, which will not be getting posted now or released now. I was actually talking about how this episode or this next release was supposed to be the end of season 1 and how I had peace about it and, transitions in life. And I just felt like it was time to end season 1. But so much has happened, and I just feel like I still have so much more to talk about. And even just talking to my wife one day, I didn't tell her that I was planning on ending the season. But, she was, just talking to me one day. It was like, oh, yeah, have you recorded any episodes lately? Oh, yeah, you should do this or do that. Like, not telling me what to record or what to talk about, but just talking to me about continuing to record. And I was like, I think, that was just like the motivation, the confirmation that I needed to say, like, you're not done yet. Keep going, keep recording. So here I am at 12:42 on I can't even say Saturday night, Sunday morning, that I'm recording. I just had a very, very long day, but it's also been a long week, a very long week. Last week, I guess it's technically last week is like yesterday, but, no, the week before that, so I had started a new job on the 10th. My last day of my old job was May 9th, which, it's said that the number 9 represents divine completion. So how fitting that May 9th was my last day. Started the new job the very next day. And so last week was my first full week, and just, there was so much to learn. There was so much to do in that first full week of the job. Like, I started it just feeling like I was in over my head. I was so overwhelmed. But by the end of it, I was like, oh, like, this is easy. But again, it was a long week. And then that Friday, I had a graduation photo shoot for my goddaughter. That Sunday, I did a vow renewal ceremony video for the vow renewal ceremony. And in case this is your first time listening and you haven't listened to my older podcast, I am a photographer and videographer outside of what I normally do. So yeah, I had a graduation photo shoot and then did video for a vow renewal. And then Monday and Tuesday took off to celebrate me and my wife's anniversary. Whoop, whoop. Celebrated 8 years together. We, went out to DC, went to lunch, but we also rode scooters. And I have a friend of mine who used to tell me that him and his wife and some friends would go out just to ride scooters. And I always thought like, yeah, that's not for me. However, I will say that we did have a lot of fun riding the scooters. I would definitely, we didn't go out there for that, but in the midst of being out there, it was a lot of fun, and it's something I would definitely do again. So yeah, so that was Monday. Tuesday was our actual anniversary, and we test drove some SUVs just to see what was out there, see what we liked. Went to a boba shop, to which I definitely don't like boba. I realized that, and I think I kind of knew that beforehand, but yeah, wasn't really feeling it. But my what did I get? Strawberry milk tea, I think is what it was. That was the bomb. And then we went to dinner. Dinner was fantastic and absolutely loved it. Great way to cap off the night. Great way to cap off the anniversary. And then Friday night, we hung out with some people at church. Man, the church member's house that we went to, it was the largest house I've ever seen. Like, I felt like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with how big that house was. And I'm pretty sure that the house that I went to was bigger than the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It a very, very, very nice house and a very, very, very beautiful home. And then, so that was yesterday, or this past Friday. And then yesterday, the Saturday, man, worked a wedding doing videography from 3 to 10. And it was a 2-hour drive there and a 2-hour drive back. I'm tired, but at the same time, I don't feel the tiredness because I drink an energy drink. So it's like I'm tired and like I want to go to sleep, and I'm not like extremely wired, but I'm awake. I'm alert, and I'll probably be up for a while, which kind of sucks. But at the same time, it is what it is. So let me rewind a little bit, because I actually forgot something that was major for me. I found out Wednesday. Well, backtrack a little bit. So my last episode, I think it was, what was the title of it? I See Things Differently. And one of the things I was talking about is, when somebody passes away and people would be like, well, you didn't show no love to them while they were here. Don't be showing no fake love now, or how people say when they're alive, like, if you don't love me while I'm here, then don't miss me when I'm gone. And I said, I reject that, because like, you don't know how death triggers emotion. You may not have seen somebody in 15, 20 years, but you still don't know, like, the death may trigger an emotion that you didn't realize that you had, or that you hadn't expressed in a long time, or even if you were at odds with somebody, like, their death could trigger you and make you feel like, man, I wish we were reconnected, or man, I wish we would forgave each other, whatever. I say all that to say, Wednesday morning, I found out that somebody that I grew up with passed away. Tragically passed away because they were murdered. And they had actually passed away on the morning of my anniversary. And for me, anytime I hear that somebody that I knew, that I grew up with, passed away, it's always like, I always like take it hard emotionally. And I think the reason why is just because, like, those teenage years for me were so pivotal in, like, to who I am as a man today. Like, they helped groom me to who I am as a man, so anytime I hear that somebody I know from where I grew up, specifically, from the neighborhood that I lived in high school, like, it just, like, it's hard for me. It's hard for me. And this isn't the first person I've known from my neighborhood that has passed away. It's also not the first person I know from my neighborhood who's been killed. So it's sad and it's senseless. And I ran into him a few years ago. He was working, he was working at one of the stores in the area, and I ran into him and talked to him for a few minutes, and it was good seeing him, good catching up. My wife met him, and every time we would see each other, of course, like, we talked for a little bit, and he had been through some things, nothing like crazy, but like, he had been through some things, but in spite of what he had been through, he seemed like he was at peace. He seemed like he was genuinely doing okay. And it was great seeing him. So, and when I saw him a few years ago, that was my first time seeing him since the 2000s, maybe 2005, just because, once I started going to church, I really stopped hanging out in the neighborhood. But yeah, so my first time seeing him in, like, 13, 14, 15, 16 years, maybe something like that. So to hear that he passed away, man, like, just emotionally, like, I didn't know how to process it, because I wouldn't say like we were best friends. I wouldn't even really say that we were friends, but he was a homie. He was somebody who was always solid. He was somebody I never had any issues with, and I don't think that somebody has to be a friend, quote unquote, in order for you to be sad that they passed away. But like, he was like, I say we weren't friends in the sense, like, we didn't like hang out as friends, but we were homies because, like, we were from the same neighborhood. We were around the same people. Anytime I saw him, like, dap each other up, like, we were cool, never had any issues with one another. Graduated the same class. I remember him from 7th grade. Like, that's how early my memories go back with him. We didn't, I guess, meet each other or like hang around each other until, I guess, 9th, 10th grade. But just anyway, I feel like I'm rambling, but it's sad and it's tragic to hear, how he passed away. And I don't know. Like, I don't know how to process it. Like, the news report said that he was at a gas station. Him and another guy got into an argument. Other guy pulls out a gun and shoots him. And fortunately, that guy has been caught. But man, it's just, I think about his family. I think about the fact that he had a kid. I think he had a son. But yeah, the emotions that it triggered, it's just like my mind's all over the place and just thinking about it and thinking about him. And again, I know too many people who have passed away by gun violence. I know too many people from my neighborhood who have passed away by gun violence. And it's a lot to take in, and it's hard to take in because like where I grew up, like it wasn't the hood, hood like things happened, but it wasn't the hood. And when I say it wasn't the hood, I mean, it wasn't like one of these places like Chicago or DC or New Orleans where like you have to, watch your back and everywhere you go because somebody could kill you at any moment. Like it was never like that, fighting. Yes. People getting jumped. Yes. But in the sense of like people dying due to violence, like our neighborhood was not like that, but too many people would have been killed. And every one of them that was killed, like it wasn't in our neighborhood, but it was most of them. It was all on like, I grew up in this area called Richmond Highway. We call it the highway. And most of them that were killed it was on the highway. So anyway, it's just senseless. It's senseless. The highway in general has gotten far worse than what it was when I was growing up. Because again, when I was growing up, people kept it to, you got an issue with somebody, then y'all fight. The worst something that might happen is you might get jumped. And nowadays, these kids or these just adults, they don't care to fight. They just want to pull out guns and kill people. And it's senseless. It's senseless. But shifting gears. So on my way home from the wedding tonight, let me first say this. The wedding was absolutely beautiful. The bride was beautiful. The groom looked fantastic. They together are a beautiful couple. They had an amazing time. And that's all you can ask for a bride and groom is no matter what goes on is that they have an amazing time. And, it was, what am I trying to say? Their reception venue was the absolute largest dance floor I've ever seen for a venue. It was also the emptiest dance floor I've ever seen just because people weren't dancing. I guess people just, not that the music wasn't good because the music was good, but people just weren't dancing for whatever reason, just weren't feeling it. So, but it was a great time. It was a great time. The couple was cool, talking to them, I love to talk to the bride and groom, specifically the brides, just because as somebody who's married, I know what it's like to be stressed out or be upset on your wedding day. And it's like, regardless of what happens, I just always encourage them, regardless of what happens, just enjoy the day, take joy in the day and understand that it's about you. And even if something doesn't go right, it doesn't mean you have to allow it to affect how much joy you have on your day. So that was that. But as I was driving home, I rode home in silence and it was just reflecting. And as I was on my way home, I saw some lightning, and then, there was a stretch where I drove through the rain, and then came out on the other end of that. And then another stretch where I saw lightning and then heard the thunder and drove through that. And then even as I got home, there was lightning and, just before, like, I'm unloading the car, getting everything out of the car. And just as I'm like parking the car, like it's starting to thunder and storm and whatnot. And I just like, I took off running. I was like, let me hurry up and get in the house, before, it gets too bad or too crazy. But as I was reflecting on the way home, what I realized, or what God showed me, is that you can't always control when the storm comes, or what direction it comes from, but you can control how you respond to the storm. And, the example is, so when I saw the lightning, didn't think anything of it, just kept going, I was mindful, like, okay, there could be a storm coming. And then as it began to rain, I turned on my wipers, and as the storm rained harder, I turned up the, for them to flap even harder, and then had to even turn it up to the fullest, just to keep wiping back and forth, and slow down, just because it's like, it's raining, let me be more cautious, whatever. But I never was like fearful. I was never scared. I was never jumpy. I was never scared that somebody might hit me or whatever, but I had to be mindful that I am in a storm. So I had to approach it differently versus if there were no storm. And, the next time it rained, same thing. I just had to approach it cautiously. And then even when I got home, I saw that the storm was coming, and rather than me slowing down, I was actually speeding up, because I'm like, all right, let me hurry up and get everything out of the car, put it in the house, and then hurried back to the car, found a place to park, and then jetted inside. And it's about how you approach your storm. I don't want to say your storm, but how you approach the storm. Sometimes you can see them from a mile away and you can avoid it. Sometimes you can see it coming and you can avoid it. But again, how do you approach the situation? Do you go into the storm stressed out, or do you allow it to make you stressed out? Do you allow it to make you fearful? Do you allow it to make you worrisome? Do you allow it to make you anxious? What are the emotions that you have when you begin to go through storms? How do you respond to the storm? Do you respond in faith, or do you respond in fear? Again, the first two storms I went through, I didn't waver. I just kept going, but I proceeded with caution. And then the last one, I was like, let me hurry and get up out of here. I knew that there was a layer of protection when I was in the car, but when I was walking, I was like, let me get out of here as soon as possible. So we have to be mindful for how we approach storms, for how we approach things. We can't always control when they come, how they come, but we can control what we do once we're in the midst of it. When I come to a storm, or when a storm comes my way, I need to respond with faith. I need to respond with boldness. I need to respond with caution, depending on what it is. With certain things, certain storms, you can't react or respond the same way. Sometimes it requires a different approach. Sometimes it requires for you to do things differently. Sometimes it requires fast thinking. Sometimes it requires cautious thinking. Sometimes it requires for you to wait and listen for what the Lord is telling you to do. And sometimes the Lord is like, you already know what to do. Like, why are you bothering me with this? So yeah, like that's what I got, as I was traveling home, just understanding, that, and then just having my light on, right? I had to have the lights on in my car. And in the same way, it's like when I'm going through a storm, I need to allow the light of Christ to lead the way. So I can see what's ahead of me. So I can see what's behind me, so I can see what's on the sides of me as well. And if my light is dimmed, or if I have a light out, or if my lights are out completely, how am I possibly going to make it through the storm? So it's important that we are doing what's needed, so that way when we go through things, that our light is always shining bright. so that so that way we can see clearly when we go through things. Or just simply being a light for others when they're going through things. Sometimes we're going through things at the same time, and my light might help somebody else see better, but their light might also help me see better, or see things that I didn't see. So yeah, that's what I got from my ride home, man. And again, it's been super busy. It's been super busy lately, but God is good. God is good in the midst, in spite of everything that goes on, through the good and through the bad, through the highs and through the lows, through joy and through sadness. God is still good. In the morning, I'm getting baptized at church, to which I've been baptized before, but in the Methodist church, so the church I got saved in was a Methodist church. It wasn't your average Methodist church, but it was a Methodist church nonetheless. And in the Methodist church, at least when I got baptized, all they did was just like sprinkle water on my head. And I'm not going to say always, I think I've always had a desire to have a full immersion, the full body baptism. And I know, at least for like the last 7 years or so, like I've desired to get baptized. And when the opportunity came this time, I told my wife, was like, I want to do it. I'm going to do it. So yeah, I'm getting baptized tomorrow and I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to it. I tried to get my daughter to do it with me and she was like, yes, Dad, I'll get baptized. And then I showed her a video of what baptisms look like. And she said, no, Daddy, I'm not going to get baptized. I'll wait until I'm a mommy. I was like, well, there ain't going to be no time soon. But no, I'm just going to keep praying and maybe she will do it with me, in the morning. We'll never know. Well, I won't know until it happens, but again, I'm excited to get baptized. I think it'd be a great way to cap off this weekend, getting baptized, and yeah, just that refreshing, that the end of one thing and coming into something new. That's just how I look at it. The end of one thing and coming into something new. Because this is a new season for me. And God's been so good. God's been so good. So again, in spite of the week that I've had, just like the emotional lows, God has been my peace through it, because it sucks losing a homie. It sucks losing people like that you have genuinely always been cool with, again, like I don't think you have to be a quote unquote friend with somebody or best friend with somebody in order to be triggered emotionally. It's just how people treat you. There are coworkers who you may never be friends with, but the way they treat you, like is that's what you remember. So it's when you lose a coworker that has always been kind, like it's like that triggers emotion. When somebody who you've always been genuinely cool with passes away, it just, yeah, that sucks, man. It really sucks, and then just because I know so many people who have passed away, and at this point, I'm not even talking about just violence, but just people who have passed away. It for me, it's like, it's almost like a benchmark. Like, and I hate to look at it like that, but it's like my cousin Trey passed away when he was 24, and then I was like, well, Lord, like, I don't want to die that young, so when 24 came and went, like, I was so grateful that I was able to live to see 25. And then my homie Brian passed away when he was 31. And I was like, man, Lord, I don't want to go that young. And then 31 came and went. I was super grateful. And then other people I know that have passed away, and then just now the homie passed away, and we're the same age, It's like, goodness gracious, like, Lord, like I have so much life to live. Like I do not want to go young. It's not to say that I'm not thinking about them or I'm being selfish. It's just like, Lord, like, why did they have to go that age? Like I would love to see everybody I know live a long, healthy, prosperous life, but so I don't know why things happen the way that they do sometimes, or why God allows things to happen the way they do sometimes. But I'm grateful. God, he is not the author of confusion. His plans and the way he allows things to happen, or the way he does things sometimes, is beyond me, or is beyond my control, but I continue to trust God. I continue to thank him. I'm grateful for every day of life. I couldn't imagine a day without him, but man. So anyway, that's what I have for today, this morning. It is now 1:06. I'm going to wrap this thing up because I'm just going to wrap it up. Anyway, until next time, y'all. Again, this is not the end anymore. I have more content to come. So we will see what I talk about. Like I have conversations, I have topics in mind. But yeah, it's just about like figuring out which one is next. And but shout out to those of y'all who listen regularly to the podcast. I truly appreciate y'all. Shout out to my sister Aurelia, who has her own podcast called All the Shenanigans, who she should be recorded. I know I be getting on her nerves because I be messing with her, texting her, calling her like, when are you gonna record your next episode? But that's just me staying on top of her, so to make sure that she's pushing out content. And it's because I enjoy listening to her podcast, so I need her to keep putting out episodes so that way I can keep listening. Oh man, but it's 1:07 now. I forgot what time I said it was before. Anyway, I'm done for real this time. Until next time, y'all.